And we are live. Good morning, everybody. I said good afternoon last time, but it was in the morning, so that's all right. And welcome to another episode of Changing the Climate, a show where we talk about the changing world around us and how we can make it better. I am pleasured to have Sondre Brekke on the show. Sondre, how are you doing this morning or this afternoon in Norway?
Yeah, thanks. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And I call you Sondre Brekke with my American accent, but if I'm correct, it's Sondre Brekke, or is it? How's it pronounced?
It's quite close. Yeah, I still haven't figured anyone to like actually properly manage to
Yeah,
do it, but it's Sondre Brekke, which
Sondre
yeah, you're
Brekke.
probably gonna struggle with.
Yeah, no, but that's all right. We'll call you Sondre for the rest of the
Yeah,
episode
that's
because
fine.
I mean we're close friends and mortal enemies. And I've been calling you that since I've met you. But yeah, so why don't you give a little background about who you are and how we met, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Sondre. I am 23 and I'm from just outside Oslo in Norway. So I got this beautiful photo of Norway in the background for everyone to see as well.
Looks great.
So yeah, I met Ethan when I was on exchange in Sydney. So we actually lived together at a really nice place there called the Colombo House.
Oh
So that
yeah.
was really fun. Yeah, we became friends there, and I've been keeping in touch ever since, I guess. And yeah, just graduated now, so I've been doing a master's degree in economics and computer science, and I'm about to start a full-time job now in August. So that's about
Very
it, I
cool.
guess.
Yeah, I hear
Quick
you. That's
intro.
very cool. That's not about it though, because Sondre is a good friend of mine, but he's also my mortal enemy and an absolute betrayer of my trust. As he said, we did meet in Colombo House, which is it's essentially it was like an international. I don't know really what it was. It's like there were first year students from Australia and there were exchange students. So we all met there. Sondre and I became friends. We had a nice group of friends of people who were probably watching this, and yeah, so Sondre and I are pretty close, and I thought he was my brother and that he would never betray me. But we had this event going on, so it was called like O Week or whatever in Australia, where it's like freshman orientation and stuff. We're all like doing fun activities and things. One of the things we did was this Assassin's Week. Of course, you know I have to start the podcast with this story, or else people won't have the background of
Classic.
our classic argumentative relationship we have. But yeah, so as people know, I'm very competitive. So this Assassin's Week, everyone gets assigned a person that they need to like kill, and then like the way you kill people is with like weapons. So it's like in the dorm, if you when you're in the dorm, that's like the battleground, and then you could like kill people with like mee goreng noodles or like stab them with a banana. And you know, it's like it starts on Monday, it ends on Friday. If you make it to Friday without dying, you win. When you kill someone, you get a new person to hunt, and it was like craziness. And yeah, I know it was going really well. I think it was like Thursday evening or something. I was getting towards
Yeah,
like the
probably.
finals. And, you know, all my friends were dead. I was with like Harry and Sondre and a bunch of people like hanging out in the common area. I'm like, oh, I'm not afraid of getting killed. I'll just hang out, keep my eyes open. Sondre decides to go behind a corner as we're all playing a card game. And then he comes back. He's like, hey, Ethan. And then he like, but right from behind him, my assassin comes out of nowhere and like throws a thing of noodles at me and misses. And I'm like, oh, like I start like running away. Sondre picks up the noodles, hands it back to the girl, and she murders me. And to this day, I still haven't forgiven him for that. So that's why Sondre is my number one
Devastating.
enemy. Yeah, so he's a true snake, a betrayer. But I think I'm just kidding, guys. But I do think we'll have a really good conversation about the differences between Norway and the U.S. because I mean we both enjoy talking about the markets and and the economy. We're both, as you said, we're the same age. We had some really awesome travels together and just really great experiences. So I think this will be a good conversation. So yeah, I guess to start off, do you kind of just want to talk about your education and your background, kind of starting from a young age and how you got to be studying economics in Trondheim?
Yeah, sure. So what I like to start pointing out is that in Norway we have a free educational system, which means
Mm,
that most people go to public schools because that's mainly what you have in Norway because they are free and yeah, everyone use them. So you usually start when you're around 5 or 6 years, and then you start with what we call a primary school, which basically is 7 years, where the first few years you basically play around, learn how to count, how to, yeah, the alphabet, all that kind of stuff. And then gradually you start learning more maths and Norwegian, obviously, and also English. And so, yeah, the first 7 years are pretty much very equal. Everyone has the same courses. You have a lot of play. You do a lot of sports in gymnastics and stuff. And usually the classes are pretty small because Norway is quite a large country where we have a not so big population. So typically, like my classes, the first 7 years were around 20, 22 people, which is very small compared to other countries, but
That's actually the
that's quite
same.
normal.
I think that's the same actually as me.
Really?
Usually
Yeah.
in the younger ages, about 20 to 30. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of like the whole year. So you don't really
Oh,
have a
okay,
lot
okay,
of
okay. Never mind. Yeah,
classes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, you gradually, you don't have any grades and any kind of stuff that in primary school.
You
So
don't
you
have
just get like
grades.
feedback. No, you don't have grades at all in primary school. So basically, you just get feedback on like tests and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
then you pick what we call lower secondary school, which you go to a new place.
What age?
And typically here, well, this must be around 12, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
because yeah, 7 years later. And what they do then is they usually merge like multiple primary schools into different classes. So here typically we would have like probably 150 in 1 year, and then um multiple classes, or like multiple, yeah, what you
Is this
call it,
outside of
groups.
Oslo where you're doing your lower level
Yeah,
education?
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is very close usually.
What's the city
You might
called?
have to travel. So it's just outside Tensberg, which
Okay.
you might recognize from the Avengers movie, which is
Oh,
where Thor, when you Asgard is. But yeah,
nice. We're gonna have fun with the pronunciation of the cities in this one.
definitely, yeah. So
Yeah.
Tensberg, that's where it
Yeah.
is. And then usually you have to travel a bit, but they're still pretty close. The schools, the lower secondary schools.
Mm-hmm.
And lower secondary schools, you start getting grades, and you start taking multiple courses. You also start doing another foreign language, where you typically choose between either French, Spanish, or German, which
Jeez.
are the most common. Yeah. So I did French, which was really interesting, and you also obviously have English all the way up till, I think, when you're 16 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
yeah,
as you guys
you
can
get
tell,
grades.
his English is fantastic, and it always has been since I've known him. I've never heard you struggle with English under any circumstances.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
I've also never heard you speak
definitely.
French.
No, I don't think that's good idea. Not that good anymore. So yeah,
Gotcha.
but yeah, you start getting grades, and you start doing other different courses, and then after you graduate from like 10th grade, which is what we call it, you go to something called upper secondary school, which is voluntarily, but to be fair, most like companies require it for in order to work. So
Upper secondary,
um,
is this what, like 17 years old?
yeah, so you start, I think, when you're 15, 16, and you graduate when you're like 18, 19. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then once again, you can merge like multiple lower secondary schools gets merged into one school. So this is where I met Hans, which is our other good friend.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's the hammer.
yeah, so we met there, and here you start doing like specialist courses. You start picking if you want to do physics, or if you want to do maths or economics and stuff.
Did you feel like you
Um,
had that the education system had gave you a good feel for what you would be interested in doing at that point when you were starting to pick courses? Did you have a feel for what you wanted to do?
yeah, I definitely feel like at that point, up until then, it was basically just like you had to do these courses. Like this is what we do. This is what
Mm-hmm.
everyone does.
Yeah.
But at that point, you start picking what you think you would be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely think I got a good understanding of what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do at
Yeah.
that point. So I started doing information technology or like computer science at that point, and also economics. And I realized that I really thought that was something I would be interested in, as well as maths and physics. And
Cool.
yeah, at that point, you also meet a lot of different people who want to do the same thing as you,
That's good.
which is very interesting. So then, obviously, you start learning from them and you teach them, kind of like you cooperate a lot more than. So yeah, and
That includes Hans, huh? He was in that same discipline
yeah,
with you. Yeah.
definitely, yeah. So we went to the same classes and also part of the same group, kind of like.
It sounds,
So
yeah, and you're all merged together into one school now. Makes sense.
yeah. So obviously, as I mentioned, all of this is free. So most people go to the public schools. We do have a couple of private schools, like
Mm-hmm.
IB. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
I don't think so.
I think it's called International Baccalaureate or something, which is
Okay.
a European standards schools where all the lessons are in English. But I don't really have a lot of friends who go there. Like
Yeah.
it's not that common, but the public schools are definitely the more common.
Yeah.
And then after that, you use your grades and your points after you take the exams and stuff to get into universities or higher educations if you want to do
Yeah.
that.
Which is also free.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's really, really convenient in that kind of way. So also, if you want to study abroad, they do provide you with big student loans that you can cover the fees you have to pay abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And you also get some of that, usually around 40% paid back. Like you don't have to pay back the 40% if you pass a grade outside. So
You're talking
basically
about when
only
you study abroad?
60% are loan. Yeah, or if you study in Norway, you can also get student loans to help with financing where you want to live and food and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Gotcha. So did you do your undergrad or so you're not masters at Trondheim as well?
Yeah, so
Was it a 5-year masters?
most yeah, so most masters in Trondheim are 5 years where you start and you don't get a bachelor's degree after 3 years. You just get a master's after 5 years. So it's
Gotcha.
what you call a integrated master's. So you don't really do like undergrads, postgrad. It's just like one study.
Yeah. How
But
did you go ahead?
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, how did you pick Trondheim out of based on your grades and what you wanted to do? Was Trondheim really good for economics? Is that why you wanted to go there? Or are there how many colleges are there even in Norway or universities?
Well, I'm not quite sure how many they are, but they're not like loads. There's definitely one in Oslo, one in Tromsø, which is in northern Norway, Trondheim, and then I think there are a couple more. But what I was looking like mostly for was I was really interested in computer science and kind of like engineering as well as economics, and it was mostly Trondheim, which are like really good at those subjects.
Yeah.
So Trondheim are really known for their engineering school, which is where I went,
Okay.
which also has
I've
some
been there.
economics, but yeah, but also they're really good at computer science. So yeah, for me it wasn't really any choice. I just knew straight away Trondheim was the university I wanted to go to. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Norway only has like 5.3 million people. As you can tell, it's a small country. It's very big in landmass though, which is cool. You guys have all the
Yeah.
fjords in the north. Trondheim is in the north. I went to visit Hans and Sondre about a year and a half ago now or something. Lots of snow and lots of Teslas driving around, which we'll get
Yeah,
into.
definitely.
We'll get into shortly. But yeah, so you just finished, right? You just finished in June, was it?
Yeah, I did. We delivered our master thesis early June. So yeah, that was
Yeah, and
good.
so Sandra and I both studied for a year in Australia. How do you think that the Australian education system compared to the Norwegian one? Obviously, both of them have some kind of like government subsidies that people study for free or take out low interest loans. Yeah, say a little bit
Yeah,
about that.
I definitely think it is a quite a significant difference because in Norway you are mostly kind of like when I say left for your own while you are studying until up till exams, because you can go to lectures. It's not mandatory to go to lectures. You don't have any like typical quizzes or presentations during the semester. You mostly have some exercises that you have to maybe deliver 70% of them, and they are not marked. They usually don't count towards your grade for that year.
Mm-hmm.
So usually you do whatever you want up until the exam, which then counts 100% of the grade you get in that course.
Didn't I show up
So,
like when you guys had some crazy presentation that you were doing? Like I showed up and
yeah,
you
that
guys were
was
practicing.
actually one of few presentations we had. So
Right. And that would be like a
which
lot
is
of your grade,
interesting.
huh?
I think it was 20%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually the
That's
exams are like count the absolute most.
so how did you decide that you wanted to go to Australia, and what was your experience like when you studied abroad in Sydney? Besides
Yeah.
meeting me, of course, which I know is your
Yeah.
favorite part.
No, I wanted to go somewhere where they spoke English, obviously, because I wanted to improve my English even further. And I
Cool.
really didn't want to go to somewhere where I couldn't speak the language well enough.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to something completely new, something I haven't experienced before,
No
not
snow.
just like, yeah, nearby. I wanted to like really go full out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much either US or Australia at that point. Then I decided
Tough
that
call.
I've been to the US. I've already like it's not that far away, if you know what I mean. Like there's
Yeah.
only 8 hours to New York from Oslo.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that Australia was definitely the place to go. Even though my parents were particularly happy me being so far away,
Yeah.
but
That's not important.
yeah. So it was either to go to Queensland or
Uh-huh.
Brisbane, Queensland University of Technology, or Sydney. And I
UNSW.
planned to go to Brisbane, but I then realized that there weren't a lot of beaches there,
Uh-oh.
and that was a quite a big bumper for me. So I picked Sydney, and yeah, couldn't be more happy about it. But
Yeah. And
with,
history was made.
and
Um,
you talked about like the differences in the educational system in universities, and I definitely felt the difference when I went to Sydney, because contrary there it was a lot more like quizzes and
yeah.
a lot more presentations and participation and
More hand
mandatory
holding.
lectures and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So that was quite different to what I was used to, because usually in Norway you read some throughout the semester, but then like right before exams, you just lock yourself in and just read 24/7 for a couple of weeks.
Uh-huh.
In Australia, it was more like a marathon, if you know what I mean. It wasn't really a sprint at the end.
I got you.
But
How
yeah.
how important do you think it was spending time outside your home country while you were like learning? How do you think it's affected the way you see the world and think about things now that you're about to enter? Who are you, and then who are you working for in the fall? Because I know you have a pretty good job set up.
Yeah, so I'm going to start working for Capra Consulting, which is a IT consulting firm. So I'm going to be an advisor there, which is basically like a technical project manager, kind of like. But yeah,
My
I definitely
my dad
felt
just
that.
texted me and said parents are important. He's obviously listening to this right now.
Yeah, no, I
Sorry.
definitely felt that my year abroad was important to personal growth. You learned a lot. You learned to be more like, or you experienced new cultures.
It's important.
I
Yeah.
learned a lot from you guys, from speaking to you guys.
Yeah. For me, of
Definitely a lot
course.
of language barriers for sure.
Right. I'm
Um,
telling you, man, I never saw any sort of language barrier with you or Thomas or Clem. You guys all had really good English, and I have
yeah.
no other language, so that was the only option.
No, I definitely feel like also kind of like humor and that kind of stuff is quite
Yeah.
different as well.
Yeah, like I said, our dorm was very unique in the sense that it would have first year Australian students, but it also had third year exchange people. So we had friends from France, England, Norway, Belgium, Zimbabwe, Australia, and then
Yeah.
Tamworth.
And
Country
United States.
Australia. United States. Oh, I've heard of that place as well.
Yeah.
So we had this awesome environment. We were all young and looking to have fun, but we all had these different cultures that we would all bring to the table. Quite literally, we would sit at like a family table and chat. So that was cool.
Yeah.
What yeah, so back to travel and how it's shaped your thoughts. So you and I both spent a lot of time traveling. You got to see more of Australia than I do. I think, did you go to what's it called? The island underneath with the little
Oh yeah, Tasmania.
Yeah, did you go there as well?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, so you
So
went all
me,
over. What did you learn now that it's been a couple of years now? We got there in July of 17. We left in July of 18, basically. So it's been 2 years now, which is crazy. How do you think it's affected the way you see the world and what you want to do with your future now that you've kind of seen this whole other side of the planet?
yeah, it's definitely an interesting question because I think that um, Australia is quite different to Norway. Because in Norway, you're more
No
like,
kidding.
if you go in the public, you're more like you don't really talk to any other people. Kind of
Okay.
like if you go in a bus, you usually take two seats for yourself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
While in Australia, it's more like, um, "Good day, mate. How's it going?" Just
Yeah,
chatting with
yeah.
random people all over the place.
Yeah, I did well there.
Um, yeah, which definitely is quite strange for a Norwegian, but
Yeah.
it definitely made me more like, I say, aware of other cultures and like other norms. Like you learn a lot from watching movies and reading books, but it's something completely different to actually experience it and
Do you think it gave
living
you
in
like
it.
a skill set that other Norwegians will never have because you're seeing this more social culture? Have you brought this into your work at home and your social life?
Yeah, I think it definitely changed me to like being more like open to like chatting to what we call random people around the streets and being more like open for sure.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
also, yeah, learning a lot about how other countries, like how their healthcare system is, how their educational system is, kind of like knowledge you might need one day. Or like if you work in a big firm that wants to start producing something or delivering any goods to any other countries, you have like contacts where you can talk with and kind of get like what we call inside info to those
Yeah.
markets as well. So yeah.
That's cool. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on is because both of us, obviously, I like talking about how we can make the world a better place, and I'm trying to do that in the United States. Sondre, obviously, we have a little funny dynamic where I like give him a lot of shit for betraying me in the beginning of the year, but we're very close. But we're also both very patriotic in the sense that we both love our countries, we love the way things are. I think we can make recommendations for changes, but people always can. So I really wanted to use this episode to kind of talk, really highlight how Norway is different and how maybe we can make some adjustments in the US to improve our society. Keeping in mind, we're talking about he had a class of 20 people. I made a mistake thinking, oh, I had a class of 20 people. But in reality, we had like 6 classes of 20 people.
Yeah.
He had one class of just 20 people. Norway is 5.3 million. The US is 365 or 340 million. So it's very different, but it doesn't mean that the way that they've organized their system can't give us hints on how we can improve, especially on a state level. Like I don't know how many people live in Colorado, but state by state, you can make differences. So let's just kind of wrap up the education section here and just kind of talk about what you learned in university and how you're using your degree to better your career, essentially.
Yeah, I guess I haven't like used my degree that much yet, as I
Well, you
pretty
have a
much
lot
just
of
finished. But
knowledge. We and you love talking
yeah,
about markets and stuff. We can go on for a while, but sorry, I interrupted you.
yeah, no, I think mostly what you learn in Norwegian universities is theory and like background info you would need to use it. Um, so we mostly learned theory behind kind of like programming, behind how the markets work, economics, that kind of stuff. But we didn't really get a lot of practice with it, which I think in different countries you get more like hands-on experience from, definitely from what I've learned. But
You're talking about
it,
Australia or elsewhere?
yeah, Australia and United States maybe perhaps as well. But definitely think that the theory is really important in order to build a strong foundation going into your working life. Definitely think that I will use a lot of the theory, but also probably a lot of the theory I've learned won't be useful as well.
Did you study
But I think
Keynes and Friedman in your economics
we did
classes?
a bit, yeah,
Yeah.
a bit. Mm.
Okay.
But I think the most important thing what we learned is like the ability to learn things quickly. Like we have big
Yeah.
curriculums, so you need to like
Yeah.
figure out what's the most important thing. I think that's definitely what I'll use the most,
Your
except
ability to
for
learn.
yeah, and the ability to
This
cooperate as well. I think because we had a lot of
cooper-
group projects.
I mean, those are two huge skill sets that you can really never get enough of. Your ability to work well with others and your ability to take in information. It's impossible to learn everything in 5 years. And to be frank, it's impossible to get along with everyone. So the better you are at
Yeah,
both, the more successful you're going to be. So that's cool. So you're starting work here in, is it September?
August,
In August.
late
So he's
August.
So he's a young budding flower like myself. We're just getting our careers started here. All right, so let's
Yeah,
get into more like macro stuff here. So can you explain a little bit like the background of Norway, how the economy works, their position in the world? I don't want to put you too on the spot. We're both obviously not experts, but I do respect your opinion, and I kind of want to talk into the role of oil and how we need to. Our countries are both net exporters of oil, which is great in the sense that we control the supply, meaning we can cut it off, but we can also control the prices. And how can we use this to transition towards a more renewable economy? So why don't you just give the best you can, like the background of how Norway really works in its
yeah.
position in the world,
Yeah,
in your
so I
opinion?
definitely think oil, as you mentioned, is very important because Norway was quite a poor country up until we in 1969 found oil for the first time. And what the government then did was they created a oil company, which is now called Equinor, which the government owns 67% of its stocks, which are the main exporter of oil. So they also realized that oil in Norway is not going to be lasting forever, obviously. Um, so they created what is known as the oil fund in Norway, which
Yeah.
basically is a fund where they placed a lot of the money they gained from exporting the oil early on. And then they're actively investing this in real estate all over the world, bonds and stocks.
Okay.
And
That's
that
what made you guys rich.
fund, yeah, that's grown a lot. So just check now, and it's at 1.15 billion US dollars,
Cool.
which is actively used because the government uses 3% of this fund um, every year, or like the earnings of this fund every year, which is a huge amount, obviously. To
Yeah, so
then,
that's 45 million a year that they're
yeah,
investing elsewhere. Yeah.
no, they use that to for instance, better the healthcare, for better
Okay. Yeah,
education
yeah.
systems, etc.
Yeah.
Um, but also, what's important, I think, is to mention how the tax laws in Norway are, because we do have very
Let's
high
go.
tax laws.
Yeah, I personally
Yeah,
think that we have very high tax laws in the U.S. as well, but we'll see what you have to say about Norwegian taxes.
yeah. So first and foremost, we have a progressive scale tax, which is if you earn more, you pay more in percentage of what you earn.
Income
So
tax, right?
usually, yeah, income. So usually would pay probably maybe 25, 30%, but if you earn a lot, maybe you pay 55, 60% of your income to tax,
Yeah.
which is a lot, obviously.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then we have value added tax,
Yep.
which is usually around 25% on
All
goods in
transactions,
Norway,
right?
all
Basically.
transactions, yeah. Except for food, where it is at 15%. So
Okay.
definitely, if you like go out, have a nice dinner, it's definitely going to be really expensive. So I wouldn't say the typical Norwegian household goes out that often. usually you stay in and cook your own food because it is
Huh.
so expensive to go outside.
Uh-oh. All right.
Um, which definitely tourists also notice. I'm sure you noticed as well when you came and
Yeah.
visited us,
I mean, I think
for sure.
did we even eat out at all? Maybe
No, I don't
once.
think we did.
We made like
Yeah.
tacos one night. I mean, I'm still a broke boy, so that was
Yeah,
how it went. We made pasta. The taco night was fun though. Yeah, I don't think we
definitely.
went out to eat at all. And I was there for like a whole week. So yeah, I guess it could be pretty pricey.
It is very pricey, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but at the same
But
time, you guys have free healthcare, free education, and
yeah,
I'm not sure what else. Yeah, right, you're saying.
yeah, that's pretty much the two most important things, I think.
So, how
So
much do you have
yeah.
to pay now that you finished your master's degree? How much are you paying for it out of your own pocket, including loans?
Oh, you're thinking about like student loans?
Correct.
Yeah. So I think a typical student with a 5-year degree would pay around 350,000 Norwegians
Mm-hmm.
kroners in
Yeah.
student loans, which is
You guys
probably
usually
like
do it in pounds, don't
40,000
you?
USD. Yeah,
Uh, Norwegian to USD. Yeah, 38,000 dollars. That's right.
yeah,
So that's
that would
actually
be typically
so
a
this is
5-year degree.
that's interesting because in the I have about 30,000. So obviously it varies person to person, but federal. So it sounds like the federal loan system is similar, but it's a lot more expensive to go to school in the U.S. So like I think federal loans
Hmm.
go up to like 30 or 40,000 in the U.S. I had something similar. I had like 28. So you're saying you have about 38,000 in debt. So we're actually not too far off. Of course, you have a master's degree, but it's interesting. It sounds like the federal loan program is similar, but the difference is it'll pay for everything in Norway, whereas in the US it
Yeah,
sounds like it'll only pay for like 1 year or one semester.
yeah, exactly. And I think the reason that the number is so high, obviously you don't pay more than like 50 US dollars a semester to go to the university, but the most like cost of like the bigger proportion of that loan is food and living expenses, which
Oh.
are really high in Norway. So I think it's definitely that's why it's so much higher.
But you guys are
Um,
smart, and you and Hans bought an apartment, lived in it for a couple years, rented it while you were in Australia, and then sold it when you
yeah,
left. So
yeah,
that
definitely.
was a smart investment. That was cool.
So yeah, I think that's like the general tax level.
So it
Covered
sounds
most of that.
pretty outrageously high, actually. If you have a value added
Yeah,
tax of 25% on everything you buy, in addition to the fact that if you make over maybe 100 grand, you're paying 55% in taxes.
yeah, probably closer to 50%. Yeah.
What are your personal opinions on the tax policy in Norway? Do you think you could still have what you have, what you like, and it could come down, or do you think it's a reasonable sacrifice to make with a small population and good amenities?
Well, I definitely think that the free healthcare and free education is very smart and very a very good trade-off from perhaps a bit higher tax levels. But
Yes.
obviously, as a startup, it would be much easier to start your own business in United States where the tax levels are much lower.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't see those huge firms grow out from Norway because
Right.
it isn't economically sustainable to start a huge firm like, for instance, Amazon or like Apple. You wouldn't see these grow out of Norway because it's so expensive and the taxes are so high. But
What do you think about small
yeah,
businesses? So it's does the government support small business in Norway, like little mom and pop restaurants or little shops and stuff?
I'm actually not sure about that.
Fair
So
enough.
yeah,
Got
not sure about that yet, but we'll see maybe in the future.
So right off the bat, you think obviously, well, the U.S. is a behemoth when it comes to starting businesses. Do you know people who personally have grown up in Norway and moved to the U.S. because they have big dreams of starting a large company?
Well, I do have some friends who started their own company called Gobi in Norway.
Cool.
But then they realized that in order to grow successfully, they would have to move somewhere else. So they moved to the United States, and tried to develop their company a lot more over there, and found it easier to gain kind of like a mass what you call it, like
Market
followers,
share?
yeah,
Yeah.
market
A
share
market.
over
Yeah.
there.
A market following customers. Yeah.
So I definitely think it's easier to start those kind of big companies or startups outside of Norway. But if you have a market in Norway that's you're sure it's going to be there, then I definitely think it is possible to start a good firm in Norway as
Yeah.
well.
So I know you've been to Japan. I know you've been to Australia. I know you've been to New Zealand. I know you've been to the US. I'm sure you've been to other countries. I've probably been with you, and I have been with you in the UK as well. I imagine you've been
Yeah.
to France. Would you ever live somewhere outside of Norway, having gone through the entire system and knowing the way things are and how we've talked? It's easier to start a business in the US. There sounds like there's more freedom and less just bills to pay to the government. Would you ever live outside of Norway? I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear what you're going to say.
Yeah, I think I definitely would live there for maybe some years, but like permanently, I would probably live in Norway because of all the benefits. You do get free healthcare, you do get free education, kindergartens.
Yeah.
You have a lot of, if you get
I mean,
kids, you have a
look
lot of
behind you. Look at what you got.
months. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think permanently I would probably stay in Norway, but I would like to live a few years outside of Norway as well, for sure.
It's fun. Can you talk a little bit about the culture of Norway? So not necessarily monetary stuff, but just what it's like to live there, if you can kind of summarize it as best you can, because you've been there
Yeah,
a while.
I do think we're definitely very patriotic. If you
Yeah,
meet a Norwegian
rightfully
outside,
so.
I'm sure you're gonna like, if you mention anything about Norway, he's gonna be really excited about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like if you see one of those blockbuster movies, like for instance the new James Bond coming up, and that's been shot in Norway, everyone is like
Woo!
really really buzzing about that, and kind of
Yeah.
like yeah, finally. So I think we're definitely very patriotic. Um, we also kind of like, as I mentioned, we're not really that good at like talking to kind of like strangers outside. We're
Hmm.
very like keeping for ourselves. If you do bring a friend over, pretty much you're talking with them. You don't really go around to someone else at another table chatting with them, kind of like.
Yeah.
Um,
So it must have been very interesting for you
yeah,
to go to Australia and live with like a bunch of people from all around the world and just have everybody
yeah, it was
talking. I
very
know you loved
different.
it. We all loved it. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. So I think that helped a lot, like personally, and to grow, to learn new about new cultures for sure.
Yeah.
But other than that, we were very interested in sports in Norway, particularly winter sports, um,
Naturally.
cross country skiing, particularly. So there is a saying that Norwegians are born with skis on their feet
Yeah.
because we're so like we like skiing so much. And so the typical Norwegian household owns a cabin as well, where you go to the
Hmm.
cabin in the mountains and then you go skiing during the weekends, and then you
Cool.
come back on Sunday evening for work on Monday. So yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, so I'm lucky in the sense that I went to visit Hans and Sondre a year or so ago, or a year and a half ago, and I got to see what it was like to live there. And when you put it like that, where people don't really like talk to strangers, it's kind of it's kind of nice. Where I'm just walking around this old city. There's like snow all over the ground. Every 5 cars is a Tesla driving by,
Yeah.
and we're just walking around. It's got this very chill vibe compared to what I'm used to being from New Jersey or living in Colorado, where there is just more people. Where Trondheim is it the second or third biggest city?
um yeah, I think it's the third or fourth, something
Third or
like
fourth,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And we're talking about the third or fourth biggest city in the entire country. And I mean, you can walk down a street and just not see anybody. Just like it
Yeah.
was, it was very interesting. It's very quiet. What's that bridge called by the church that we walk over?
Oh yeah, Bakkelandet.
Buckalong. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just really nice scenic sights. It's cool. All right, so
Yeah.
before we get into we already talked about traveling. Before we get into like prison, which I want to talk about, because I think that's really, really important as a great model to show the rest of the world. I don't think Hans agrees. I don't think he likes it. But just back on oil, what is the stated plan for Norway's transition into renewables? Because I know you guys, obviously, I said there's a lot of Teslas around.
Yeah. So definitely, Norway want to find renewable energies which are going to sustain for the future for sure. I just read a stat where 98% of our energy now is renewable, because
See,
we
that's
do have these
astounding.
hydro plants and stuff. Yeah.
While
So
at the same
we have a
time,
lot of.
I'm sorry. I'm working on not interrupting people.
Yeah.
But while at the same time, your biggest export is oil. But you're talking. It's very interesting. It's like a country that it needs oil for its economy, but it's then reinvesting into renewable energy, which is really cool. I think it's a
Yeah.
model for the rest of the world.
And in that sense, we're very lucky because we do have a lot of mountains with water running down from them, so we can use the energy of the water running down on like water mills, kind of like,
Yeah,
to then generate renewable energy, which is very fortunate because of our geography.
correct.
And also in terms of renewable energy, also read a stat that in 2019, 43% all new cars sold in Norway were electric, which is, as
A
you mentioned, you
lot.
see a Tesla all over the place,
Yeah, that's a lot.
pretty much.
43%. People don't even realize how much that is. That's like basically all the cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be kind of like role models for how you can develop into a sustainable economy and also a sustainable future. And yeah, I guess that's
Yeah.
pretty
So
much.
that's great. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's great. But I mean, it's such a small nation with a thick history, and it seems like people keep to themselves. But at the same time, the government has a lot of control over the way things go. So power sounds very centralized, and you have a lot of control over the monetary system. But do you think it's scalable, the model that you guys follow in Norway? Do you think if we were to like, it's maybe not like all of France that has this high tax rate and has free healthcare, but what if we tried it in like little pockets of countries? Because you know what I mean? What if we took like a group of 5 million people, and like I don't know how many people live in Paris, but like, and tried this model of free healthcare, free education. I guess they do have free healthcare in most of Europe, and probably
Yeah.
free education. All right, America is a little an outlier, but at least when it comes to renewable energy, you guys power the whole country. You said like 98%, but again, there's not as many people needing energy. Do you think we can follow this model in any way elsewhere, or do you think it's very like Norwegian based, if that makes sense?
I think it definitely depends a lot on the culture of the country. I think that's probably, yeah, the most important point, because
Okay.
you need to have kind of like the mindset that, oh, you don't need those huge cars you see running on gas. Kind of like
There's a
you're
lot in the
fine
parking
with
lot right here.
a small electric car. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
I think kind of like the culture has grown to become more like, yeah, we're definitely, we love our mountains and we want to keep our nature, for future generations. And in a
Yes.
sense, we need to do renewable energy, and we need to have a sustainable economy for that to happen. So I definitely think that the culture and mindsets would have to be in place in order to try something like this in other countries.
What do you guys are in a tough spot. What do you think the future holds when it comes to oil, when oil production inevitably will cease at some point? Not maybe
Mm.
not completely, but it will come to a much lower level when the rest of the world is on renewables. How do you think Norway is going to be able to get by on the world stage? Is there any sort of like plan that's out there to explain how you guys are going to like make money without oil?
I'm not sure if there's any like plans out there, but I do know that they are investing a lot of money in renewable energy,
And technology,
constantly. Yeah,
proprietary
particularly,
technology can
yeah.
be sold for a hefty price.
Yeah, and also we are exporting a lot of salmon and fish, which
Yeah.
I do think could be potentially our next oil, if you know what I mean, like
Okay.
the next mass. export as well. We are exporting a lot of salmon for sure. And since we're investing so much in renewable energy as well, I think at some point they will discover something revolutionizing that will be able to sell to the rest of the world. If we're going to have a big role like we have in the oil side, probably not. But I'm not sure if we need this big exportation role, if you know
Okay.
what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because you guys seem to do a good job of taking care of each other, because that's
yeah.
just the way the system is solidified. Speaking of which, taking care of each other. So I have this belief, and I don't know if it's controversial or unpopular. I think a people are judged. A lot of people say a people are judged by how they treat their weakest. I personally think a people can be judged by how they treat their worst. So I personally believe that no matter what the crime someone has done is, I don't think it's justifiable to then do back to them something horrible. So I'm not a proponent of like eye for an eye. Like if someone cuts your arm off, you cut their arm off. Like I'm more of like, let's figure out why this person did that thing. So do you want to kind of explain the prison system? So if me and you were to go out and rob a couple stores together in Norway, what would happen to you?
Yeah, so kind of like the main goal of the prison system in Norway is rehabilitation and
Huh.
motivation,
What a
which
crazy
is
idea.
yeah, which is very contrary to the kind of like the punishment mindset.
Oh yeah,
So
for sure.
we do spend a lot of money on prisoners, a lot of tax money. We do have a lot of modern prisons with very humane like conditions. You usually get a ensuite toilet, you get a TV, you get a shower, you get a huge windows, kind of like it really doesn't look like a prison. But
Yeah.
and also the inmates, um, you want them to rehabilitate. You want them to like have the best possible chance of getting back into society when they go out.
Correct. Yes.
So
And
usually
it
inmates,
works.
yeah, it does. They start work at 8:15 every morning in prisons. They usually do woodwork, assembly workshops, like car, um, yeah,
Cool.
fixing cars and stuff.
Are they getting paid or
And
no?
yeah, I'm actually not sure. I think they are getting paid for it.
Okay.
I'm not 100%
I
sure on
won't
that
quote you
though.
on it. No worries.
No,
Yeah.
but yeah, as you mentioned, it definitely works. We have one of the lowest recidivism rates. That's a hard word, but
Yeah. No
uh,
worries.
it is
It.
around 20% in
That's what I
Norway.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
I
I
think in the
looked up, it
U.S.
is
Yeah. Go ahead.
52% in the US. I found.
52% of people will go back into prison once they get out.
Yeah, and
Is
I
that
think
is that what that
that's
means?
after 2 years or something.
I I think it actually might be higher than that. And I wonder, do you think that says a lot about your system or more about the Norwegian culture? Do you think Americans just, I'm not going to listen to anyone, like screw the system, or is it more like the actual rehabilitation program is you truly think it's superior?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question, and I did some research on this. And
Okay,
what it
nice.
turns out is that in the 1980s, Norway had a recidivism rate of around 70%, which is very, very high. It's like kind of like the US.
Yeah,
Then they realized, okay, we need to try something different. We need to have uh, a new like
system.
motivation goal and system. Yeah.
Okay.
So they tried and they reformed the whole prison system,
We're in desperate need
to
of that.
change from revenge, which kind of was in the old like Viking age. You always, as you had eye for an eye. So they changed from that in order to now start rehabilitation. And
Mm-hmm.
as you see, it's worked tremendously well. We went then from 70% or recidivism rate to around 20% now in just like 20, 30 years.
That's incredible.
And yeah, if you look up online, there's plenty of articles of international researchers or reporters coming to Norway and not believing their own eyes if they see like the prison system.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's definitely worked wonders for us. So
that's amazing.
um, and as I
It's
say, it might have something to do with culture as well. But I think this fact proves that it's not just all about the culture. It definitely had
No,
some effects as
beyond a
well.
doubt. I mean, it's definitely just a case study, if anything, but it's a very powerful one in the sense that it was tested with real people, and we had rates go way down. So it's just something to consider. We don't need to take it as like gospel in the sense that the Norwegian prison system is perfect. I mean, the idea itself is kind of just, it's just awful to have to like lock up your own people, but at the same time, it's treating them still like you guys have this camaraderie in Norway. You take care of each other if they get sick. You make sure everyone's educated and has a position in society. And here are these people who are the outliers now, who feel like they don't have a position in society. And you're saying, hey, like you did something wrong. We're gonna put you up in here and show you the way we do things in Norway, the way you can be a productive member of society rather than just you're a horrible person, lock you up and keep you away from everyone else. That's just the kind of
Yeah,
feeling I get. I think it's one of my favorite case studies in Norway. One of the most interesting things. Of course, I love to see the Teslas, but
yeah,
the prison system is very interesting to me, and I would want to do more research into that. All right, so I haven't done this yet on the show because it's really testy, but I think it's about time for me to start talking about the coronavirus a little bit. How have
yeah,
you been dealing with that? How has Norway dealt with it compared to other European countries? And what are your general thoughts on the virus and this moving forward?
yeah. I think we definitely were really early on realizing the potential danger of this virus. And I remember sitting in Trondheim. We were like maybe a week before like lockdown happened. We were just chatting and realizing, oh shit, there's something going on now. And then it started like reaching Trondheim, and we are like, oh shit, what do we do now? Because
Yeah,
we were writing our in master, writing a master thesis. So we were sitting in
stressful.
this big like computer science room, kind of like with loads of computers, and everyone was sitting there, and no one was really writing anything because everyone just kept refreshing and looking if someone in Trondheim had gotten it yet.
Oh
And
God, yeah.
it was just like, yeah, everyone was really, really aware of it. And then happened is within just a few days, the Norwegian government realized that, okay, we need to do something very quickly or else this is going to go really, really bad. So
Like Italy.
they locked down pretty much. They said that, okay, we're shutting down schools, we're shutting down everything that is not like mandatory to work, like shopping centers or shop, and like grocery stores were pretty much the only thing open.
Hmm.
So me and my friends, we just went in a car and just drove back to our homes instantly because we didn't want to
Oh
get
wow.
like locked down in a small apartment.
Yeah.
And it definitely worked because we do
This
have,
is March 15th,
yeah,
18th, something
mid
like that.
March something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So it definitely worked because we do have a very, very low death rate, and also very, very few people are have the coronavirus. I think it is in our whole population, 9,000 people have tested positive, and only 255 people have died so far in Norway from coronavirus, which is, of course, there is
Point
255
zero
too many,
zero
but
two percent. 0.002%.
yeah.
Are you guys still
So it
locked
is
down?
very low. We're not in lockdown anymore, no. So things have opened up now. We also opened our borders to countries which are not marked as red, as the government call it.
Yep.
So if you have a certain number of percentage rise from a week to week, you get marked as red. But now borders are open. But most people have stayed in Norway this summer, and I think most people are very, very good with keeping distance as well. So it definitely worked well here, I think, but
Do you guys wear masks when you go out in public?
not really. No,
No, that's
must have
interesting.
mandatory if you go flying, but
Flying.
not otherwise. Yeah,
So how long? So the lockdown meant everything was closed basically, but did you have to stay home or could you go out and go for walks and stuff?
you didn't have to stay home, no, but
But no,
you
everything was
were only
closed
allowed
though.
to, yeah, and you were only allowed to meet a few people at a time.
Okay.
So it wasn't like you have to stay in your house, kind of like, but it was still like everything was shut, and people were really really good at staying home and just keeping their distance, and I think that really helped the coronavirus stay so low, like the numbers stay so low in Norway.
When did the lockdown start easing up? So these restrictions started in March, I would say March 15th or so. When did you start seeing things begin to open up? Like, can you go out to a pub tonight if you wanted
Yeah,
to? Cool. So
yeah,
when did it
definitely.
start like easing up?
I think it was probably early June or something.
Okay. Yeah, similar
Yeah.
to here.
So
Gotcha.
yeah, that's around that gyms open and restaurants open and stuff.
Yeah, and
So
it sounds
yeah,
like
I
the
think it
highest
was
you
around
got
that time.
was 0.002% of the population getting sick. Do you think that has something to do with the standard of living and the healthcare quality in Norway as well? I know we're not epidemiologists
Yeah,
here. I mean, we all don't know. It's really just speculation at this point. But I figured we could talk about it.
I'm not really sure about that. I think the most important thing was the government realizing so early on
Oh,
that okay, we
serious.
need to do this. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
serious. Like, and kind of like the culture in Norway as well, where we take care of each other. Yeah, like you
but you
said,
don't
the
talk to each other.
comrades. Yeah,
Take care of each
exactly that
other,
as
but
well.
we don't talk
We stay
strangers.
away from everyone else, but
Yeah,
we talk to our friends, and that's about it. So I think the culture definitely impacted those rates
cool.
as well, for sure.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you guys are doing healthy and well. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Sondre and I keep up pretty well. I think you were my mentor for my cookie bike class, weren't
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Yeah, so Sondre was my mentor for my first real business. If you haven't seen my YouTube channel, the very first video or the second video is Cookie Bike, my on the spot $1 cookie sales, one of the best projects in entrepreneurship class in Australia. So yeah, we're just kind of wrapping up here. I think it's been fun to kind of get a look into Norway. Sondre is obviously like a lot of the people I met in Australia are some of my best friends for life. We all live around the world together, so we all have different like points of views, experience, cultural upbringings. But yeah, I just want to kind of finish off here by saying what's next for you, man. You know, it sounds like you just got your wings and you're about to fly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So just starting work now in August. Really excited about that. Moving to Oslo. So that's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be nice. And then we'll see what the future brings.
All right.
Hopefully I can
Yeah. Well,
see you guys soon as well. So
oh, no doubt. And then we'll get you to buy some houses out here in Boulder, so you have some nice hedged investments in case Norway gets flooded with too much renewable energy from the fjords. All right. Cool, everyone. All right. So this has been Changing the Climate with Sondre Brekke. And it's been a pleasure to have you on, man. I'd be happy to hear how everything's going in the future. We can talk about once we both get a little bit more intelligible when it comes to like macroeconomics and stuff. We can talk about things, and plus, when we're actually able to socialize and see more stuff, it'll be better. Sounds like things are going pretty well in Norway, as they always are in that little paradise that is your 3.5 million people fjord filled island. But yeah, Sondre, thanks for joining me today, man. I really appreciate you coming
thanks
out
for
and
having
taking the
me.
time. Yeah, no pleasure,
Thank you.
man. All right, 2012, everybody.